So we got an interesting collection of connecting rods. We're going to look at the differences between all of these things. And all of these are out of various Mitsubishi engines. What we've got here, we got an Evo piston and rod combo. We have a second generation Eclipse stock piston and rod combo. This is out of a 2G turbo. We have, this is an Eagle rod. And these are out of my blown up 7-bolt. So good little comparison here. And it looks like the other rod that was shipped to me by
Detect this
on DSM tuners was looks like yeah, that was an Eagle rod. They couldn't identify it. I don't see any numbers or anything on it. Normally they say 5900 MBB, but this one's all rusty and you couldn't read it if you tried, if it was there. I noticed there's some differences up here at the top and the small end pin bore area that are cast slightly different. The holes, the diameters of these holes are the same size. They'd be a millimeter different if it was for a 6-bolt, but this is definitely a 7-bolt. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's a millimeter smaller. Are these thicker?
Yeah, they're wider.
Yeah, this is a 6-bolt Eagle. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it doesn't say 5900 MBB on it. So, 6-bolt Eagle rod. Right here, 7-bolt Eagle rod. Here we have a 1G turbo piston and rod combo, and that one's pressed on just like the others. This is a 6-bolt Manley H-beam rod and Manley piston combo. And what do you think? If you were going to build an engine, and you were going to build a Mitsubishi engine, what would you be looking for in a connecting rod?
Be a little bit lighter to start with. So
Lighter's good.
yeah,
And the Eagles are,
they're like 550 gram.
yeah,
Stock is like 690, 700ish. So that would be a start. But if you absolutely have to have the strongest rod you can get, it probably would end up being an I-beam rod.
right. And on these connecting rods, they look like they're shot peened. You see that textured surface, or is that just left over from the forging?
It's probably shot peen, but they didn't bother to grind the ridge off of it, so
Right. That's the parting line for the mold. Is that right?
Yeah, that's forged rod.
And you see, there's a little hole right there. That's a
P-hole.
P-hole for the oil to be able to make it up to the piston skirts.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these pistons rely on the rod journals to supply oil, and that little squirt is about all it gets. A lot of these blocks do have oil squirters as well, but that is an oil supply hole, and you got to make sure you get your bearings lined up with that correctly when you're installing them.
Yeah, the oil squirter always aims at the thrust side.
There you go. The thrust side of the piston skirt.
Mm-hmm.
So the Evo rods are pressed on. The 2G turbo rods are pressed on. The 1G turbo rods are pressed on. So if you wanted to separate any of these wrist pins, you see the wrist pins are firmly attached inside the rods right there. If you wanted to get that out, you'd have to use a press. But let's look at the parting lines on let's look at the ridge on all the rods. And you see they look all about forged the same. The fatter, if you have a real fat ridge on it, it means that it made more passes in the forging process from compression, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's the parting line. The big fat line is forged, and if it's a pencil thin line, it's cast.
That's right. And then we get into these guys. These are forged.
Yes, they are, but they're machined after the forging, so they wouldn't be aligned to tell whether or not. You just know that they are.
That's right. And
aftermarkets are always usually forged.
This surface, this grainy looking surface, this is definitely from being shot peened.
Yes, those are.
Because this was machined flat at one point, and then after the shot peening process, millions of little steel pellets are blasted under air pressure against this, and as they impact the surface, they leave these marks on it. But what that's actually doing is compacting the molecular structure of the surface, and it makes a hardened layer on the top. And you see here, we've got a couple little oil holes for the wrist pins. These are full floating wrist. This receives a full floating wrist pin, and there's a bushing machine in there. And that's all. That's where it gets its oil supply from. That's the only oil supply it gets. Nothing is transferred through the connecting rod like on some engines. And That's the only place where it gets oil from. And you'll notice these don't have the little oil holes that aim up at the pistons, like the factory rods do here.
They do not.
Here and here.
Which maybe would be a reason to keep oil jets.
Yep.
Possibly.
Yep. Full floating wrist pins can benefit from that. Now we're gonna do something fun over here. We're gonna mess with the Manleys for a moment. This is a Manley H-beam. We have a full floating wrist pin design. This pin in the center is not firmly attached to this rod. You can slip this thing around, as you can see here. And
you got enough clearance there, that's for sure.
That's right. You got plenty of clearance for a bigger rod. You could run any combination of rod and piston combo here and not have to get this machined.
Did they give you... Oh, those are just part numbers. I thought maybe they wrote the gram weight on it.
No, we got 605, 105, and 3310.
They're probably in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 grams, I'm guessing. I know that's what the Wise code's close to. Like
Manley 37012 in the bottom of that one.
Definitely lighter than stock.
Definitely. This is really hogged out, and you can see that the edges of the piston are actually thicker, that it's like a concave design on the inside. And the skirts are coated to reduce friction. Now this engine actually ate metal shavings. It munched on some stuff pretty good. You can see all the evidence of that up around the ringland areas.
Turbo let go or something. I mean,
yep.
I did have one that looked like that one time after
munch.
The brass sleeve bearing in a 14B had a blocked oil passage, and when the turbo grenaded it, they actually crammed the oil filter with so much metal it bypassed the oil filter. And when that happened, it went really bad after that. They actually chewed up all the journals and the cam bearings and scratched the cams up. Ate the bearings and the crankshaft up. The only thing that was salvageable out of it was a set of 1G rods and a set of Wise code pistons that they polished up okay. They were still good, but none of the bearings in the engine were any good after that. The head was thrown away, the cams were done, everything. Just a side note, if you do put a full floating wrist pin on a stock connecting rod, which you can if you're just going to put forged pistons on it, they typically will take the tip of the wrist pin in and drill a small hole into the top of it and then countersink it, because they'll have to hone that out to make it a slip fit for a floating wrist pin, and the stock rods wouldn't have a hole there to feed oil. So if you put a hole there and countersink it, the oil that sprays up hits the roof of the piston and falls back down will make it into that hole and supply the excess oil that it will need, because you'll have essentially two bearing surfaces then, being that it's a full floating wrist pin, whereas in stock configuration the only bearing surface is where the pin rides inside the piston, because the pin is pressed into the rod here. But with the need for extra lubrication, you'd have to add another hole.
Oh yeah. Well, now that you've seen the factory forged rods, some aftermarket forged rods, you know, all these H-beam, all these H-beam rods, we have the crowning jewels here. You should come open this. I'll let you do the honors.
Okay. There we go.
What's the first thing you see?
Balanced.
Yep.
Yep.
Isn't that cool?
Weights for the big end and the small end.
Pull one of them suckers out of there.
Less than 2 grams. See, there's that hole I was talking about.
Yep, that's right.
That's all you gotta have. Oh wow. Tapered beam. It's an eye beam, but look how thick the center of the eye is. Not like there where it's paper thin. Let's look at side by side. Let's do to the Evo rod.
What do you think about that?
That would do it. that should do it.
Notice something else on the face of this one? It's all smooth right here. See that shape?
Yeah.
Look at this. What do you see here?
Oh,
these relief castings?
Yeah. It's like I guess it's a gusset in a way for where the bolts attach.
That's right.
These are bolts and these are studs, but these are what, ARP 2000?
Yeah, they're 2000s.
Yeah, ARP 2000s. 3/8s, aren't these 3/8s?
Yep, same ones used in the 350 small block Chevy.
Yeah, and these are 5/16. No, they're 8mm, which is basically 5/16. The interesting thing, what was the? I know that's the end measurements, but what was the total weight on the rod? Because it actually
that's another thing that they provide you with right here. 685 grams.
So it is a small amount lighter than a stock rod.
Very small.
You're not going to find a lot stronger than that.
What are we looking at on the factory rod? Like 697 or something like that?
Most of the ones I weigh were anywhere from 690 to 700, but typically 695, 697.
Yep.
Some of the early Hyundai stuff was actually heavier. Out of the 1.6 liter Hyundai.
We should get the 1.6 liter
I've got
Hyundai rod.
I can go grab it. This might be the reason why your Elantra, when it was new with a 1.6 liter, only got 25 miles to the gallon.
Big heavy rods?
Possibly.
That
and
thing
with
is
an
a
automatic.
monster. Now look at that. Was that marking right there? Is that machined?
They flatten that part and polish it from there up. I've seen a lot of those like that. I don't understand that.
I don't know why they did it.
Where was the 6-bolt? That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
On these, they're flat all the way down. Which is...
So this is a Hyundai 1.6 liter.
1.6 liter Hyundai rod.
Look at these pistons.
They aren't Mitsubishi parts. They're just... They're the same forgings and the same dies that Mitsubishi used and just sold the rights to them and the patents. They just make their own version of it. But
that's right.
As far as measurements go and stuff,
you can see that even
totally interchangeable, but it's not exactly the same parts.
Look at this. You can even see that in the dimple drilled through for the oil hole.
Yeah.
Right there on both of these.
I mean, you can use one and the other. It really makes no difference, but you want to use a match set.
Yeah. You definitely want to have that balanced.
Incidentally, the 1.6 liter has a larger bore than the 1.8 liter.
Let's look at it on this side. I mean, the likenesses. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They're so similar.
This is... They ground it down more, but it's a forged rod.
No, it's there. It's just hidden by the rust.
Yeah. That's been sitting for quite a while.
Now they don't appear to be forged quite as hard as Mitsubishi did, though. The parting line is thinner on this one.
Yeah.
But forged rod nonetheless. A 1.6 liter. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Is that rod the same length?
Yeah, it's the same length.
Huh. Interesting.
All the DOHC Mitsubishis have the same length rod. They just change the deck height and the stroke to make it work. So.
Well, let's take this Manley H-beam and I-beam rod. And you can see some pretty obvious differences here, especially when the rod's turned up on its end.
Yes.
Solid. That thing is just massive.
What do they rate those for?
Oh, 1100 plus, I think is what I read. 1100 plus.
And what about the regular, not the Eagles, but the Manley H-beams?
You know, I don't know what the limit is on those. When I saw these, I said, hey, that's the last rod I'll ever need.
Now the Eagle H-beams...
It's probably more rod than I'll ever need.
Eagle H-beams, aren't they rated like 600 at the crank?
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard, but I had a either fastener or rod bearing failure.
Yeah.
Well below that point. I was logging 420 at the wheels the night it blew up, and you can see the evidence of that here.
Yep.
So that one was spun.
Yeah, it's hammered.
Pretty nasty. And I think I might have one that's worse. Let's see. Now that's the one that only spun a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's like a little bit pregnant.
So, but what I'm thinking is, with bearing failures aside, I mean, if the rod...
We're talking about bearing failures?
It's 2 for 1 day. It's buy one, get one. You buy one half, we give you the other half at the same time, see?
Look what happened here.
That's 2 bearings.
Yes.
When it spins around...
Go ahead and pull them apart.
I can't.
They will.
Oh,
They'll
man.
come apart.
Nah.
Yeah, they come apart.
I believe you. Oh, you got that down. I don't have. Look at that purple.
Uh-huh.
Heat.
Scored marks, just destroyed.
It's wafer thin.
Wafer thin mint. It's just a wafer thin mint.
Yep. Those are your JEs?
Yep, these are my JEs.
Are they going back in?
Yes, they are. This is the ones I had my block machine for. There's nothing wrong with the wrist pins, nothing wrong with any of it. They didn't get destroyed, munched up, or anything.
What the
hell? That's a hawk.
Yeah, I got one. I got a red tail that comes around every now and then.
My goodness.
He landed on my power.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back this thing up. I'll catch him again.
He's after something. It's probably my cat. He'll probably pick her up and take her away. But...
Oh, there he goes. You don't see that every day in my neighborhood.
What do we got going on here? Those holes, the little teardrop shaped holes, supply oil to the oil rings.
Right.
But what are these big holes? And what is that chamber inside there at the roof of the piston? I've never seen that before. Where does it go?
Are these things made in two pieces? Because there's a gallery that goes all the way around the outer ring.
I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's like...
Cooling?
Possibly. It squirts enough oil in there and it gets trapped in the dome. Maybe it cools it, but... It's kind of an odd way to keep knockdown. You're adding a volume of oil to the roof of the piston. You're adding weight.
Question is, what's hollow?
I don't know. I've honestly never seen a piston that looks like that underneath. Everything on the outside looks familiar, but that is... That's odd.
Don't know what to tell you there.
Yeah. I can get my bandsaw out if you want.
Hey, we can do that. You have a bandsaw?
I do.
You want to cut that apart?
If you want to. I'm gonna go right in the oil ring and just cut the roof off of it.
Take the roof off?
Mm-hmm. My apologies for any of you guys that are Evo owners. This is purely in the name of science. I promise. Almost there. Got my nice deep groove in it. It's soft, but it's a lot of material. Okay.
Let's snag that.
Yeah. I gotta find the thickest spot here. Okay. Just hold it down good. Sit straight. Apparently it's a lot thicker than I anticipated. Getting there.
So I think I have a compression problem. Just a little one.
Is that a two-stroke?
Yeah.
You should put some reed valves up there or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Jaffa? What are we looking at here? Now that we've cut the top off and we see that there's the teardrop holes that feed the oil rings.
I think it's for
these
cooling.
3/8 holes fill in a chamber. That looks like it's
chamber.
hollow all the way around the entire.
This was cast like this.
Yes.
So they put probably wax in here inside the mold. They put a wax ring in it and then compressed the sand all around it before they poured this part. And
they left a void in there that can be filled by oil.
Yep. And
so
and all for cooling. So it's cooling for the rings.
For the top rings, being because they're so close to the deck of the block and so close to the top of the piston, where all the bang happens. If you notice on these old 1G rods, how far down the first ring is. It's so far lower than this first ring on this Evo. The top of the piston on the outer edge is going to be about 3 thousandths, maybe 5 thousandths below the deck of the block. So both of these pistons are going to come up that far and be even with the top of the block, give or take. But look at the difference. The first ring on that Evo piston, that's about 150 thousandths difference. It's a little over 1/8 of an inch closer to the top of the piston. That's getting a lot of heat. So they cooled it by leaving that hollow chamber there.
It's interesting because I haven't seen that on any of the DSM stuff that I've ever handled.
I haven't seen it on anything.
So,
and I've handled a lot of pistons at the machine shop, but never seen that on anything factory.
Now, it's interesting that Manley takes a lot of the design cues, like the coated side skirts and things like that from this,
short skirt,
from this model piston.
They kept the ring far down.
Yep. They kept the rings far down like on the 6-bolt.
Yeah. So they took the best qualities from both and really put them into one.
That's right. Now I would imagine that this would provide you with a thinner...
how thick is that roof?
It doesn't appear to be very thick.
It's pretty thin.
So...
my mic won't fit around that.
Yeah, I can't. If you put some spacers in here and then measure the spacers, you can get you subtract
possibly, yeah. But it won't reach. It won't reach that far in.
Yep. That's just interesting. So, when you upgrade your pistons and get the Manleys, you get a meteor. No, I don't know, man. That dome on the Manley doesn't appear to be that burly either.
But it's forged.
Yeah, it is.
Now, honestly, nothing has a thicker roof than a 1G 6-bolt. I think we measured one time. It's almost 3/8 of an inch thick.
That is thick. That's crazy.
It's got those beams of metal going across casting the aluminum that are like structural reinforcements. They're like 2 beams that go that way.
Yeah.
You also notice these steel bracket inserts in the corners, all 4 corners. You don't see that on a lot of stock pistons. I mean, these things are built for one thing.
Making power.
Yeah, they can take the cylinder pressure. They're not the lightest thing in the world. They don't rev that high easily. They can, but not easily.
And that's why a lot of people use aluminum rods. The aluminum rods are they're great for high revving applications because they don't create a whole lot of harmonic vibrations from being slung around inside the block.
Yeah.
But you know, downshifting with aluminum rods.
They don't like closed throttle high RPM.
No, they don't. They don't like being downshifted because it stretches the rods.
Yes.
It stretches the rod. I mean, I'm sure the fasteners are probably stronger than the rod.
Yes, they are.
So
yeah, definitely.
So it'd stretch your rods and.
Aluminum rod motor on the street, not a good idea.
It can be
really
done,
what
but
you
have
need.
to know how to drive it.
Really, what you need in a rod depends on what your expectations are. If you got a street car and you're not going to spend it over, you know, $8 grand, 8,500, you're not going to make more than 500 maybe horsepower. I mean, you know, mainly H-beam or even an Eagle H-beam would probably be suffice.
That's right.
You know, if you're going to make 400 horsepower or under, I mean, a stock rod will do that all day long.
No problem.
If you have any doubts, you can always, they make ARP bolts for them that you can do a few tricks and bells and whistles to the stock rods and get them smoothed on the end of the beam, have them shot beamed.
You mentioned the fasteners, and that's an interesting thing here. This is a
Evo
factory
fastener.
rod and bolt combo, and you see that the bolts come in here through the top side, and this is pressed into the rod, so it's not like it's going to come out easily. If I had a hammer, I could probably knock it out.
Yeah.
But it's not going to come out easily. And here you go. Here are the Eagles, and you notice that the bolt head is on the bottom side, and no nut because the threads are machined into the rod surface.
They have dowel pins on those, right? Yeah.
Because this one has a bearing.
They do have a shoulder on the bolt to center the bolt, but you still got to have the dowel pin really to center the cap to the rod. Because if that is slightly off center at all, if it's crooked, you'll have some bearing issues.
We're getting Evo piston dust all over the place.
Sorry, I know you're not using this again, right?
Nope.
Okay. I didn't think so. But you got them.
Yep.
And this one's purple. The dowels are in the cap, my mistake, but nonetheless, they are doweled. The dowel centers the cap, the bolt centers itself with the shoulder at the end of it. That makes sure that the cap is centered completely. This is a tight fit, you just saw.
Oh, this is the factory one.
They have a shoulder that's a tight fit into the cap.
The sucker got torqued back down. Damn it.
Oh. Well, this one might not be.
Now see, I'm saving this set because and I'm not even going to take the pistons off of it because I might find the need for a 6-bolt rod and piston combo in something I own. For instance, the Colt has a factory build, has a set of these just like it.
You know what'll get all that black stuff off pretty easily?
Orange cleaned.
Awesome orange, but you need a little bit of it.
Awesome orange.
I got about 30 bottles of it in a tote over here. It looks like a toxic soup. I've been soaking parts in for quite a while. I swear, the dirtier it gets, the better it works. These just have splines to center the cap.
I see.
See, they're loose here, so you get to the splines. There is still some movement there. It's not extremely tight. So, when they go back together, it should be even on both sides. I mean, it shouldn't be anything sticking out. If anything looks out of the ordinary, you've probably got the wrong cap for that rod. I don't know that you can put them on backwards. I've never tried. Yeah, you can. But they aren't supposed to be there. The tang. See, they went on too easy, really. There's probably some play there. They should be a pain in the butt to get off. Not that easy. This is the Hyundai one, so I don't... whatever.
So I hope you enjoyed show and tell today.